Hello, everyone, and welcome to the QT2 Systems, My Journey to Kona podcast series. My name is Reem Jishi, and I'm the content director for QT2 Systems. Our featured athlete today is Dave Bradshaw, and we also have with us today his coach, Dave Zimmet. Welcome, Dave. Welcome, Coach Dave. Thanks for joining today.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm going to start with athlete Dave. Okay, so Dave, tell me, when was your first triathlon, and describe it for me a little bit, please.
Okay, first triathlon was back in 1998. First year in college, just finished my first year in college, and a couple of older buddies that I was working with at Wegmans at the time. They said they were doing, they were going to do a triathlon, and they knew I was a distance runner. So they said, hey, you should give this triathlon a try. It's fun. So I entered it, and it was a sprint distance, and I had a diver's wetsuit. So I did have a wetsuit, full front zip sleeve, full sleeve, long, top to bottom. It was like I said, it was more for a diver. It wasn't really a triathlon wetsuit. I had no idea what a triathlon wetsuit was at the time. They just said, do you have a wetsuit? And I said, well, yeah. So I show up with this bright green and blue diver's wetsuit, and my bike was a mountain bike, like a Huffy. I think the brand was Univega at the time, but it was like a 10-speed mountain bike, had the rock shocks on the front, big fat tires on it. No cages, no clip pedals, just sneakers. And so that's what I had to bike with. And then the run, just my running shoes. So did the swim, came out of the swim, not too bad. I actually took swimming as a course in college because I teach PE, and that was one of the courses we had to take was aquatics. So I wouldn't say my swim was horrible. It was middle of the pack. I got out in the middle and struggled. There is a picture floating around somewhere in my library of pictures of me actually trying to wrestle myself out of this wetsuit. As I'm running up the beach, got out of the wetsuit, jumped on the mountain bike. I just put my shoes on. I had running shorts underneath and like a tank top singlet that you would run in. So I was pretty much a runner just trying to get through the swim and the bike. The bike course was flat out for, it had to be 4 or 5 miles. We took a left-hand turn and went straight up this hill it was pretty steep. And I remember the bikers on the bikes, they're all doing S's back and forth up this hill because it was so steep, and they were all clipped in, and they had, shoes that clip in, so they really couldn't walk up because they'd be slipping. So I just remember, I had a mountain bike, so I could climb a little bit better than some of the guys because I had the gearing for it. But I remember looking over at somebody next to me and just saying, hey, is it illegal for me to get off the bike? Can I get off the bike and push my bike and run up the hill? And he goes, well, yeah. So that's what I did. I got off my bike, put my feet down on the pavement, and just grabbed the back seat. And with one hand on the back seat and just the other hand kind of swinging like this, I just ran up the hill pushing my bike. And I passed 4 or 5 people. And somehow, despite being on a mountain bike, I did improve my position on the bike, which also might have been because my swim wasn't that great. But steep uphill, probably, I don't know, half mile, quarter mile long uphill, got to the top, and then it was pretty much steep down and flat into the finish. So once I got to the top, I just tucked and let gravity pull me down. So came in off the bike and just took my bike, threw it on the rack, and I was already in my run shorts, my singlet, and my running shoes already on and tied. So I just took off for the run. And at that point I was a runner. So, I ran the 5K, and it's probably like around 17, 18 minutes. It was one of the quicker times. I do remember looking to see if I could have the fastest run time, and I didn't, but it was up there. So that was the first one I did back in 1998. Yeah. And I didn't do another one until I think it was 2011 or 2012. It was a river rat triathlon up in Clayton, New York. And that ended up being a duathlon because the swim was so rough that it was a run bike run, which actually was good for me because being still not really getting into triathlon that much. So I did that, and I think I finished second at that when I did that. It was my first one in 2011.
All right. So a 13-year break just the first one didn't do it for you? You're like, yeah, I'm not.
No, it was more like, my buddies just said, hey, come do a triathlon with us. And I mean, I just like outdoor sports. I'm a PE teacher. I like sports. I like endurance sports. I just like being active. So I said, yeah, why not? Sure. I didn't train for the first one. It was something to do on a Saturday with my friends. So I did it. And, but back then I was just a pure runner for college. And, once I finished college, I was a local road runner for many years. And what kind of got me going to do the next one was when I was, starting to, I guess what I would call going over the hill, where I couldn't run as fast. I was no longer setting PRs. It was almost obvious I was never going to set another PR on the road. And the younger generations were coming up, graduating college, and they were just starting to run. And I couldn't keep up with them anymore. I was frustrated, trained harder with worse results because I was overtraining. And it was at that point I was like, you know what? I think I'd like to look towards doing something else, something new. And somebody suggested, hey, why don't you try triathlon? And it was like somebody just literally flicked the back of my head. And I was like, oh yeah, I had so much fun doing that. Why don't I try that?
Yeah.
So, I figured at that point I was still young enough and I had a decent run, and I like to swim, and I'd never biked. So I was like, okay, let's give it a try and see what happens. I mean, I really wasn't having fun running anymore. Not the fun that I wanted, and certainly not for the amount of time I was putting into training. I wasn't getting out of it what I had hoped. So yeah, I went in for triathlon and did that first one in Clayton in 2011, and I loved it, and it was great. And I was hooked from there on.
All right. So you must have gotten a real bike in there somewhere.
Yeah, so I did. So yeah, that was the first thing. When I decided I was actually going to get into triathlon, I did go get a legitimate wetsuit. By that time, I had asked enough people. I said, what kind of wetsuit do I need? And they're talking about, these are the wetsuits that you need. I think I have a 19 or something like that. And they were telling me about different brands, but I went to the local tri store that had triathlon wetsuits. And then I did get a bike too. I went to the local bike shop. And the first bike that I got, though, was actually a road bike, road cycling bike, not a triathlon bike, because I didn't know, I only had enough money to really spend on one bike. And, going back and forth, my thought process was I can put aero bars on a road bike, but I can take them off, and I can do like the Furman ride we have here, where people ride and pack, and it's like a group road ride, but it gets a little frowned upon if you have aero bars, because they can be dangerous if you're riding in a pack and you're an aero. So my thought process was I can make a road bike work for both. So I bought a road bike, put clip-on aero bars on it. I still had the shift on the side. And that's what I bought for my first year of triathlon, which I didn't do a full Ironman. I just did intermediates, shorter stuff, sprints, intermediates that first year with that road bike. And it worked pretty good. I mean, for me, it was like, it was like going from I don't know, what's a car reference, like an old Chevy Nova to like a Corvette. For me, it was,
Yeah.
not quite the Ferrari yet, but for me, I just knew it was, my mountain bike probably weighed 25, 30 pounds. The tires on it were like this wide, no clips. So, I get a, and the road bike that I bought was carbon fiber. I was still on aluminum back then. It might have even been steel. And so, I get this carbon fiber bike that weighs under 20 pounds, and it was like, like going from a Chevy Nova to a Corvette. So I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
I did have to learn how to clip into pedals. That was new for me. Cycling shoes that clip onto the pedals. And I only fell over once or twice. And that was a little nervous, the first time, but like anything you learn. So first year was with that bike. Yes, I did get that bike. And then, I did end up eventually, once I started getting the triathlon, even though I had bought a road bike and a wetsuit, I quickly learned about even more stuff as you get into it, what you need, the equipment, what you can get, what you can really get if you want to spend the money, stuff like that. But, I started to try to educate myself as quickly as I can and become knowledgeable on everything about the sport, as far as what it takes, equipment, training, just everything. So yeah,
All right.
quickly
So
learned.
you started 2011. I think that race sort of like in the back half of the season, raced another season. When was your first Ironman event?
First Ironman was 2013, Ironman Lake Placid. So, and I signed up for it as soon as you could in 2012. So if the race is on a Sunday, I think, that you have to wait maybe a week, or I forgot what it was back then because it was 10 years ago. But I remember I couldn't sign up right away. I had to wait. And I remember somebody telling me, or people telling me, you got to sign up quick because the race will sell out instantly. And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, if you're an athlete, you get first dibs, you get to sign up ahead of time. If you're a volunteer, you get to sign up ahead of time. So a lot of the slots are already gone. So you really need to be on your computer at 12:01 when general registration for somebody like me opens. And I was on the computer at like 11:58, typing in my information so that I had my name, my address, my medical, my credit card all filled out before noon, so that when 12 hit, all I had to do was hit register. And I figured maybe I'll do this right and I'll beat everybody by 30 seconds because I've already got it all typed in. I'm sure many other people are doing the same thing.
It worked though. You got your
It worked
spot in the race, which is like half the battle for Lake Placid back then. I mean, so okay. So how did the race itself go for you?
The race went well. I feel like I did prepare for it. I had somebody advising me, Ron Gordon, and he was somebody that I was just working out in general with, just fitness and riding and even some short course triathlons. And he said, he's done Ironman, so he was advising me on what to expect. So I feel like I trained hard. I remember doing my first 100-mile ride. I actually rode from Rochester down to Binghamton. It was 118 miles, I think, one day. So I remember doing my first 100-mile ride, but I did a couple 100-mile rides. I was not shy about running. I mean, for years when I was just a runner, I would do 100-plus-mile weeks, week after week after week for years. So the running wise, I felt like I had done marathons, so I wasn't afraid of that. I was afraid to do 112 miles up at Lake Placid with the hills, but doing some long rides and stuff, living around here, the Finger Lakes, around Canandaigua Lake, you can ride it. We got some good elevation here that we can get in. So I've been doing some riding, and I felt good about, well, how do you say good? I felt like I had the flavor for what it was going to take to bike 100 miles, but I didn't put the two together, the bike and the run. But and swimming, I was doing a little bit of swimming, naively at the time. I just didn't think that I needed to do all that much swimming. In my head, it was because it's only 10% of the race. So of the three disciplines, I probably prepared least for the swim. But the race went well. I got out of the water. I think I did 1:09, and my goal was to do 1:10. And I just, from the advice of others, they said, the swim is just a warm up. Just go, do it nice and easy, stay controlled, try not to get beat up. I wanted to get on the cable and at the lake, the famous cable at Lake Placid. And, I was cautioned that it can get rough on the cable. So, if that happens, you might want to swing wide. But the swim went well. And I did what I felt like was my goal ahead of time, which was to just get through the swim and go easy and get out and then get on the bike. And I knew it was 2 loops, and I did not want to go too hard on the bike. I was cautioned by people that have done the race many times before that first loop, people go out and they torch it. In the second loop, they're losing 15-20 minutes from the first lap split to the second lap. One person that Dave and I both know, Kelman, he actually advised me to stay in the small chain ring the whole first loop, just the front chain rings, keep it in the small. And I feel like I did that. I kept it nice and controlled. I wanted to try to respect the advice that people that have done the Ironman before me gave me. So I would say I got off the bike. If I remember correctly, my bike time was around 5. It was either 5:48 or maybe 5:43, somewhere in that neighborhood, probably 5:44, 5:48. And then the run, you know, I get off the bike and I felt like I was doing good. And then the run, here I am finally, now it's something I'm familiar with, which is a marathon. So I just remember going out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to run mid sevens. I can handle that. I've run sub sixes for a marathon. I can do this. So I just started running like 7:07 7 low, 7 mid, 7:0s. And I've got my run shorts on and my singlet. I totally changed out of the bike gear. And there's people recognizing just me on the course and even not recognizing me. But I remember one guy saying, oh, look at this guy. He's in running shorts. He's in run gear. You got to watch out for these guys. The ones that change out of their cycling shorts and tri shorts that slip into running shorts. You got to watch out for these guys. Well, I think it went good for about 8 miles. And then I feel like the legs started to get heavy. And then I started to realize, I think in that short amount of time, what a lot of people are trying to prepare me for, and that the race really doesn't start till like mile 18 on the run. And I was at like 8-10 miles in and things just started getting heavy. And so I finished the run. It went pretty good. But I think, Dave, I remember you in 2013 going by me somewhere around 8, 10, 12 miles into the run at Placid. And I know you said this to me, and I don't know if it was that one or not, but I remember you saying, come on, run some 8s with me.
I think I was out on River Road, right?
Yeah, you went by me, and I don't know if you gave me a slap in the butt or what, but I remember you come up behind me and you said, come on, run some 8s with me, because I was struggling at that point. I think I might have even been doing the walk run at that point. Walk a minute, run a minute, walk a minute, run a minute. And you said, come on, do some 8s with me. And that was pretty cool. And I think I hung with you for a little bit running some 8s, but then you got smaller and smaller. And I did finish. My marathon was 3:36 or 3:35. And the race, I think I was a 10:34 or 10:36. I think I finished 25th in my age group. So the race, it went good. When I got done, I had a smile on my face. I felt like I learned a lot. I did not feel like I made any huge mistakes. I feel like I listened to the advice of people, and it guided me in a good spot to finish the race, have a good feeling about the race, and want to do it again right away. As soon as I finished, I'm like, yep, I want to do it again. And I want to improve upon, every discipline. I don't feel like I made any huge mistakes, except maybe run a little fast starting out. And also not realizing what I was going to feel like on the run after doing the swim and the bike. But I knew I wanted to do another one, and I wanted to try to improve and get faster for the next year. So,
all right. So you qualified for Kona in 2021. So in there between 2013 and 2021, there were a bunch of races for you, right? Was there a point where you went from being that, oh, I'm finishing in those, mid 20s in my age group, to realizing, yeah, okay, I can get this. I can get to Kona, and mix that in with me too, in terms of when you decided to start working with Coach Dave?
Okay, so I think there's a few levels. So first of all, after 2013, it was not my goal. Well, I had heard of Kona, and I knew it was the biggest thing in 2013, but I really did not feel like I had the experience to qualify on my first time. I thought, maybe if I'm good enough and I don't know it, but realistically, it was just, let's do Ironman Lake Placid 2013. Let's see what we do. If I want to do another one, go from there. So when I finished, then it became, okay, this was hard. I learned a lot, and now I see what the top guys are doing, what their times are, and what I need to do in the events to, look at realistically qualifying. So after 2013, I signed up for 2014, and I started to, work, train, and try to improve upon the disciplines, train harder, train smarter, and see if just having that 1 year experience, the race under my belt one time, knowing what it feels like to do all 3 events, and then putting them all together on race day. So 2014, I think I was like 22nd in my age group. 2013, I was like 25th. My swim was 67, I think. So I was 2 minutes faster. My bike was 5:38. So that was pretty good. I was better than the year before, despite doing a lot less biking. I just couldn't get the biking in. And I knew that going into the race, like in 2014, I'm like, okay, I really got to be careful. So I had like trying to just get the most out of my body. I remember the plan was to not bike 112 miles. And what I mean by that is the Keene descent. I wasn't going to pedal an ounce going down that. So if it's a 5-mile descent and you do it twice, well, now I'm only biking 102 miles. And I'm not that great at descending. So once I get up to about 40 miles an hour, I sit up, I start shaking uncontrollably. I'm the white knuckler grabbing onto my handlebars. So, but I actually biked a 5:38. And I think my time was like 10:36, 10:37. I mean, we could look back. It was in the 10:30s, maybe 10:34, something like that. It was 22nd. And again, same thing, finished the race. And I'm like, okay, 2015, another year of experience. Maybe I can continue to chip away. So 2015, I think my swim was like 65. Bike was a little slower. Run was a lot slower. I think it was hot, really hot. I think it was like a 4-hour run. And at that point, I changed my focus. I'm like, let's try a different course. Biking isn't great for me. The biking seems to kill my run because my legs are torched. Lake Placid, a lot of hills. So I went and did Ironman Texas. And at that point, I was really, really focused on trying to qualify for Kona. So I went to Texas, which was the North America Championships, had more slots. So I tried to get a slot there. I finished 15th in my age group, trained really hard for that. It was a hot day. That was the year that they had to change the bike course like 3 or 4 times because of flooding. I think the bike course was like 91 miles with something like 90 turns or some crazy amount of turns. So I finished 15th in my age group there. It was like a 9 something if you add it, or I guess project it out based on the speed you were doing for the bike, despite only doing 90 miles. So I was happy. I finally broke, I guess, 10 hours, you could say, but didn't qualify. And at that point I was like, wow, this is getting really hard. I'm not progressing to where I want to, where I thought I could. So I did Louisville, I think 6 months later, dropped out of that. And at that point I was like, I got to make a change. I'm training too hard. So didn't race in 2017, 2018. I signed up for Lake Placid again and was going with back and forth on the idea of a coach. Fortunately, at the time, I don't think that I could have. I could have had a coach at the time. I just my head was going too many directions. I wanted a coach, but I also knew I wanted the right coach, and I didn't really know where I didn't want to get a coach. I knew I wanted the right coach, but I didn't research where to go, and I just didn't want to settle on a coach. So I actually just coached myself, thinking back, hey, if you study, learn some things, read some things, look at the mistakes you made over the last couple of years, focus, get rid of some of the distractions in your life, maybe you can do it this time. So that was like my last chance to try to coach myself in 2018. Trained really hard in a conversation with Dave, because Dave and I know each other. He later on, he said, he made the comment to me, I saw what you're doing. And he's like, man, I just felt like you were torching your body. And I didn't know it at the time. Now I do, but I overtrained. I just trained too hard. I thought more was better. More is better. If you do an Ironman, you have to be an Ironman. So you have to be able to handle a lot. So that's what I did. I pounded my body. And 2018, I finished like 22nd again. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm getting a coach. I want to go to Kona. And David just put out a little bit earlier, before 2018 Lake Placid, that he was coaching, and I contacted him, and he said, wait till after you're done with the race, get a hold of me. Don't change your course from now. And that's what I did. After 2018 didn't finish where I wanted to, I wanted to contact Dave. And the reason is because when I knew Dave back in 13, 14, 15, and we were racing together, we were close. We were back and forth. And then, 1 year he was like gone, never saw him. And, I found, through research and like, hey, how did he do? He swam 10 minutes faster than me. He biked like a half hour faster than me. And he finished, What'd you finish like second, Dave, 1 year at Lake Placid overall? You were
No,
up
not
there.
overall. No.
Yeah, you were up there. Maybe it was in your age
Uh,
group, age something like you
Yeah,
were up.
second in my age group after joining QT2. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he did that. And I was like, whoa, what is he doing? So when he said, I'm coaching, I'm looking, if anybody's looking for a coach, I'm coaching, I'm QT2. So I reached out to him, and that's when I decided to go with Dave. And I knew I wanted to go with Dave because we were racing together, and then we weren't. He was in the next zip code. And he was just consistently racing so fast. And it's like he said, whatever he was drinking, I wanted to drink from the same bowl. So I contacted him. I got all the information. I said, I definitely want you to be my coach. You're close by. I know you. I feel comfortable with you. We used to race together. Now we're not. And I'd like to get to your level. I'd like to follow the same path that you're on. I'd like to get to where you are. I once was with you. I'm not. I'd like to try doing what you did to see if I can get back to racing around you. If you can do it, maybe I can do it too. So that's how I went with Dave. And then we trained 2019 together, and I was 11th, just instant, like huge improvement. My swim now was like 63 flat. So personal best in the swim. My bike, I think, was like 540s again. It was consistent with what I had been biking up there. I think it rained that year. I mean, it seems like it rains every year up there when I'm on the bike. And the run was back, and I think in the 330s or something. It was a good run. The first one that I did, the first two that I did, it was 2013, 2014. Well, now it's 2019. I'm 5-6 years older, and I'm getting older. So in my mind, I should be slowing down while I was picking up speed. So things were going in the right direction. Dave and I talked after the race. I was 11th. I was like, wow, I'm close to the top 10. I'm not in the 20s anymore. I improved by, 10, 15 places from where I had been. And just in conversation with Dave afterwards, he's like, you did great. He's like, this is great. You've been with me for less than a year. What you said, November we started training. So November to July, I do the math backwards. It's something like 8-9 months. And in 9 months, he's like, you accomplished so much. You raised the bar. You lowered your times, raised the bar so much. But 9 months isn't necessarily enough. You might need to be on this journey a little bit longer. I think that's true. It's especially if you're trying to get to a super high level, it's going to take your body maybe a little more than 9 months of training to go. And of course, I've seen what he's done. His results speak for himself. So I totally was like, yeah, it makes sense. So we stayed on. Plan was 2020. COVID hit. Trained real hard. Totally ready for the race, and it shut down. And I said, let's just keep going. Let's just keep our foot right on the gas pedal. And at that point, nobody knew if we were going to be racing in 2021. But I said, it doesn't matter. For me, it's better to stay in the program, stay fit, than to take a break, get out of shape, and try to get back in shape. I don't want to spend 3 months trying to get back in shape, everything I lost. So I said, just, let's take a little bit of a pause, a reduction while I coach in the fall, September, October. And once I'm done with my high school coaching responsibilities and I can dedicate that time to also training, let's go full speed. But I was still training in the mornings before school. So I would say about half capacity, or half volume. And once cross country ended in November, we picked right back up, and we went to it. And we were ready for 2021. And Dave said, and that was the year with a few more spots. He said, I don't want you thinking about the extra spots. You are good enough to be up top. That's where I want your mind to be. You've trained hard. So don't focus on sliding in the back end of qualifying. I want you focused towards the front and do what you've been doing, and race smart, but race what you're capable of. So that's what we did in the race. Oh boy, that race was something.
It was.
I should ask what you think of that race, Dave, because when I got off the bike, I don't know who was more scared or surprised, you or me.
I mean, on that race, it would just became a question of mental fortitude. Anybody on that run, you're a little behind where we wanted, and anybody in that position on that day in that weather could have easily just
A
folded.
little, a little,
Yeah.
a
Oh,
little.
no, I mean, you weren't too bad. It
I
was
don't
supposed
think
to be a conservative bike.
a little. Maybe it was a technical glitch, because at first it wasn't a little.
Yeah, but yeah, you held in there and you ran everybody down, and that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. The race went well. The swim was 61 flat. It was like 61.00 when I got out of the water. So that was awesome. I was hoping for 62 and I was 61 flat. The bike, I just did my thing. I really didn't look at the speedometer or the average miles per hour. What I was concerned with was watts and heart rate. And Dave, you and I talked about the heart rate. My heart rate was like 10 beats over, and we've kind of talked a little bit about that, inside versus outside. But that was the main concern, was my heart was like 10 beats over all day long on the bike. And I was totally trying to follow directions and keep the heart rate in the zone, but it was one zone too high. But then I was also using watts, and from riding enough, knowing that if I'm going to have anything left for the run, I better not be over an average of 210 watts for the entire distance. So I kind of like shifted my focus away from heart rate and was paying attention to the watts and trying to keep the average about 205, 206. And that brought me in on the bike. Legs didn't feel bad. Was passing a lot of people the second half, especially coming up to past White Face the second time, passing a lot of people. But I got off the bike and I just saw 550. I think it was like 550. I was like, oh man, what kind of damage have I done here? But at the same time, you got to be able to run. So I got off the bike. And of course, at that point, transition was now way up top. So I had to wait a mile to get down to where you were. And I remember looking at you going, okay, how we doing? Where am I at? And I think, Dave, your response was, well, you're a little behind where we thought you'd be. And I was like, okay, what position am I in? Hoping you'd say like 25. I think you said you're like 39th. And I remember looking at you. I thought I was in like 39th.
Actually, I do remember that. And I called Kelman. I was like, you have a bike? And,
yes.
He chased you down for me.
Yeah, because I remember looking at you when you said 39, and I think my first words were, it's over. And you're like, I'm like, what do I do? And I think you're like, well, you're a little bit behind where we thought you were, but you're a runner. Just do your thing. And I remember leaving you because I'm running by you in the 5 seconds. We're trying to communicate all this information. And I remember running. The last thing I said to you, Dave, was, but I feel really good. My legs feel really good. I did not torch the bike. And I remember you saying, okay, do your thing. And then I'm running, and 2-3 minutes later, right, Dave, Kelman comes riding up to me. Bradshaw, what's up? He's like, you're doing awesome. You're in, I don't know, 29th or 25th or something. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm in 39th. I go, I just passed Zimmet back there. He's like, I'm in 39th. He goes, I got your coach on the phone. He told me to ride up to you. He's like, something must have happened with the tracker. He's like, you're in the 20s. He says, get going. He says, you're back in the game. Get going. Get your game face on and focus. And from like right then and there, I went from passing Dave going, it's over, but I feel really good. But it's like it's over. I'm too far back. I can't run 30, 20 places, to, oh my gosh, this could happen. I'm at the back of where I wanted to be, and my legs feel really good. So at that point, it was like, then I had to focus and go, okay, don't get too excited and take off. And at mile 13, 18, blow up because you were too excited and you had too much energy to go after it. So I was like, all right, do 1 mile at a time, like you've done on all these long runs. Just do your thing. And that's pretty much what I did. And I was just running by people like they were standing still, and I felt good. And I'm just like, I want to push this as far as I can. At some point, I know the legs are going to remind me of what I'm doing. At some point, the lead's going to come into the legs. And I was like, if I can just get to 20, all I got to do is run back home from way out on River Road, and I can do that. So, and I just kept pushing comfortably, and it's mentally such a build when you're going by people and you're feeling good. And there were people that I knew along the course, and they knew what I was trying to do. And every time I was by somebody, they're yelling out 25th, 24th, 22nd, 20, 19. And I think we came through the first lap, and Dave, you were there right about halfway, and you're like, you're there, man. You're there. You're in. You're where you need to be. You're like 17th. So in 13 miles, I had made up the gap that I thought was impossible at one point. So at that point, it was like, I still feel good. Legs are, I mean, the splits are, they're hanging on. They're not dropping off. I feel good. And at that point, I was like, all right, just maintain. You don't have to do anything special. You don't have to change anything. You're still running everybody down. Don't change anything. Don't try to go faster. Just maintain. And you're probably going to have a couple of, buffer spots. So, and that's what I did. So the plan was when I got to mile 18 to really start to throw down. And if I felt good, well, I got 18 and I didn't feel good anymore. That was about where I started to feel like, okay, now the race is starting to set in. So I was like, okay, wait till I get to 20 and then you can go. If you want to go, go. I got to 20 and I was like, no, legs are feeling a little more tired and I'm still running the same pace, but it's taking a little bit more effort. So I didn't change anything. And I think I got to like mile 22 or 23 and I was like, all right, I'm going to go. And I think at that point, Dave, you'd said I'm in. And I was like, how do you know? And you're like, I know. He's like, you are way in. You're way up there. So at that point, I felt exhausted, tired. I mean, everything that I probably should have been feeling for trying to time it just right. My hands were starting to tingle a little bit, my fingers. So I knew I was kind of on borrowed time, but I had like 2 miles to go. And at that point, I was just like, all right, we're just going to run it home. We're going to give everything I got. You can make it 2 miles. You're not going to pass out. So I remember the last aid station with a mile to go. I just blew right through it. I'm like, I'm gone. I'm hammering this home. I can do this. I've worked for so many years. I thought about this for so long on the bike, what it would be like to qualify, barring anything I didn't know at the time, which, you just never know till you get the spot. I was like, I'm in. You're gonna achieve this. So that last mile, I was like on cloud 9. Like I said, I blew right through the aid station and I was just hammering it home. And there was 3 of us that came in together to cross the finish line and we were like sprinting finish. It's somewhere on the replay, but you can see as we're coming in like full throttle, the 3 of us. And I was just like, never would have thought I would have been able to sprint finish at the end of an Ironman after, and I think my marathon time was like 3:15:02 or something like that. And it ended up being the fastest split for the 40 to 44, which is what I needed to do considering my bike was not what I need. It was back. I've slipped back a lot on the bike.
Well, you pulled it all together, though. It's not about any one thing. It's about how you finish, and what a great race. And that's exciting that you knew while you were on the course that you had a slot, that you didn't, I mean, you probably didn't really know until someone actually gave it to you, but
I didn't know. Correct. I didn't know. All I knew was I trusted Dave, and we didn't know how many spots there were. We knew there was a few more, and Dave knows what I want. He's known for years what I want. He's had to talk me off the edge because I wanted to try so hard and say, relax. But he knows how bad I wanted to try to qualify. And when he said, you're in, and I said, how do you know? He said, because I know. I trusted it. I told him that was 100%, confidence.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit. So you qualified now over a year ago. You're going to Kona in a couple months. What are you most excited about?
To see what's on the other side of the rainbow, to see what everybody that has done it has seen, to experience what they've experienced, I hear the stories from people that go and have done it once, and how like awesome it was. And I hear the stories of people that do it every year and how awesome it is. It's like, I guess, like the Super Bowl of triathlon. It's the biggest event for triathlon. It's the World Championships. You get to be on the same stage as the professionals. You get to compete with the best in the world. I want to see what it's like. You just say the word Kona, and anybody in triathlon, I mean, they know it isn't. And there's so many people even outside of triathlon that's what they know about triathlon is Kona. A lot of times when I say I've done Ironman, the question I get is, have you done the one in Hawaii?
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest. As a competitive person, I always want to see if I can reach the top. And for me, this is the top. I mean, I'm never going to be a professional athlete, so this was my top, and I wanted to see if I could get there. And all signs point to I'm going to get to see what it's like.
Yeah. So anything make you nervous about it?
Yes, absolutely. Not finishing. My goal, I want to finish. I'm nervous. My biggest fear is that I won't be in the results because something happens. And I've had night terrors about it. I want to finish. I want to be in the results. I want to say I finished the race. I mean, to qualify is huge and to be there to see it, but I want to finish. So I want to be in the results.
You're making me making me so nervous. I'm going to be cheering you on. This is going to be this year. My list of people I'm tracking at Kona is going to be really long because of this.
I mean, I'm looking at like the small stuff, like, how to transport my bike there. I've had the conversation with Dave and a few other people. Should I do like a service, like bike flights or try bike transport and just let them do it? Should I pack it underneath the plane? What happens if it gets broken? What happens if it goes to Jamaica instead of Hawaii? All of these things. What happens if I get, a mechanical? I'm still racing on the same tri bike that I got back in 2012. I'm original drivetrain, everything. I mean, I got new chain, new chain ring, but that's about it. Everything is pretty much original. It's got some miles on it.
Good miles, trusted and true.
So, but that's the one thing, like, is there going to be a mechanical, anything that I can control, I'm going to do. Like, if I get stung by a jellyfish or something, it don't matter. I'm going to keep swimming. If I have to walk, roll, crawl, I'm going to do the 20. Unless somebody pulls me off the course.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish what I can. I mean, the bike mechanical is what makes me a little nervous. And, I've already got a contingent plan. I'm racing on Saturday, and I know people that are going to be racing on Thursday. So maybe if something happens to my bike, I could grab somebody else's bike. I mean, I've done one on a Huffy, so not
There
full,
you go.
but yeah, I want to finish.
One last question for you. For a person that's in your situation that says, that Kona is their dream to get there, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
Oh, I don't feel like there's an easy answer to that, but one piece of advice is you got to stay with it. It's hard. It's harder for some than others, but you got to be willing to put the work in. You got to be dedicated. It takes, for me, it took a lot of mornings and a lot of evenings. It took a lot of not doing other things that my friends were doing or that other people were doing. It took 3:30 a.m. starts because, like, this past Saturday, 2 days ago, I had a family wedding in Casanova, and we had to leave by like 1. So Dave had me on a long bike ride, but you know what? So I had to get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning to start because I had to get to that wedding with the family. But I remember Dave telling me when he said, "What's your goal?" And I said, "I want to make it to Kona." And he says, "Okay." He says, "You're going to spend a lot of time by yourself training. You're going to feel like a little bit of a hermit sometimes. And it takes a lot of times by yourself. And there's going to be a lot of distractions along the way. They're going to seem instantly like more fun at that moment. Get you off the bike. You don't have to do the bike. Do something else. There's going to be a lot of temptations. But in watching some of the many thousands of YouTube videos that I do while I'm biking, one of the motivational things that I saw was, if you know what you want and you want it bad enough, then how you're going to do it is going to be a lot easier. And I knew I wanted this that bad. So at times things were hard. It was hard to get up. It was hard. There was times it's hard to get up. There was times I wanted to be doing other things. But during those times, I just went back to, what is it that you want the most? And I wanted to qualify. And to me, I just said, if I choose the shortcut right now, if I choose not to get on my bike, if I do something else, if I pick a distraction or a temptation, it's not going to help you get there. And usually that was it. Just, it's not going to help you get there. Do you want it bad enough? And if the answer was yes, then that was the end of the conversation in my head, and I went to work. I did what I had to do. Or I did what Dave had set out for me to do, which was follow the plan. And I trusted Dave 100%. I followed the plan. But so that's a long answer to it. You got to be dedicated, but you also got to you have to put yourself in the position. You have to get the right tools. You have to get the right support system. You have to have, I think you have to have everything. And that's the thing. You have to have everything. So whether it's the dedication, the focus, you got to have somebody that knows what they're doing to advise you. I mean, until I was with Dave in QT2, it wasn't going to happen. You have to have all the pieces. Mm-hmm. At least for me, I had to have all the pieces. If there was a piece that was missing, it wasn't going to happen. So.
That's awesome.
That's a long answer to one thing.
That's okay. It's a journey, a long one. So, all right, Coach Dave, turning to you. So we've just now been listening to athlete Dave for the last 45 minutes or so. So we know a lot about him, hopefully, from this, but from your perspective, how would you describe him as an athlete?
Dave, I would say Dave is pretty naturally gifted. We were talking about earlier, we've been racing in the same circles. And I remember when I started hearing the name Dave Bradshaw, he's a very strong, consistent athlete. And I didn't get to know him too well until we started working together. But as an athlete, like being able to watch him as a coach, he's super dedicated, super focused. I think that last thing that he was saying was probably a really good picture of him, of just being able to set his sights on one thing and then kind of prioritize to make that happen.
Okay. So you started working with him, years after he had been racing, and at the end of 2018, right? So how did he go from the middle of the packer to then becoming just barely missing that first year to getting his qualification in 2021?
Yeah, it's going to sound self-serving, but the simple answer is he got a coach. He, in my mind, because it's really interesting how Dave was lining up the same way that I lined up when I started training with QT2. I literally was 11th the first year I raced Lake Placid, just like you were. And then the next year, I think you would have been probably an age group winner, but then COVID ransacked everything. But to me, it's, you can either, it's going to sound like a sales pitch, but you can either spend a lot of time trying to figure out what everybody has figured out, or you can engage with somebody who has that knowledge already. So with Dave, it was, he's a natural runner. He's an amazing runner. So it was basically like, let's take that knob and turn it down a little bit, move some of that durability over here. Obviously, one of the things that people generally don't have right is the race nutrition. So we got him fixed on that. And that was pretty much, in my mind, the jump from like 20th to 11th. Mm-hmm. And then it was just kind of a matter of tweaking him throughout the next year or so, and just working on race execution.
Mm-hmm. So on that day in 2021, when you saw he comes off of the bike, and whether it was 39th or maybe higher, but on the screen anyway, it said that he was 39th. What was going through your mind when you told him, okay, you're a little behind where you want to be? What was going on in your head that translated into what you told him?
Yeah, it was a weird day. It was a weird race day for everybody. That was an unusual course, both the bike and the run. And everybody I know, my athletes or not my athletes, really suffered on the bike, and splits just seemed to be slower than anybody really expected. In my mind, I was a little bit worried. It wasn't where I wanted him to be. And it's always kind of this balance of how easy do I have an athlete go on the bike, right? I don't want to give up too much, but I could have told Dave to hit a 4:30 and he would have. He just wouldn't have run afterwards, right? So it's kind of like, how low do you set the dial on that bike ride to set up the run that you need, because there's no such thing as a good run, a good bike, if you're walking on the marathon.
Sure.
So he went by, and I thought the whole time that if he had a good run performance, that he would have a shot at being where he wanted to be. And sure enough,
Yeah.
it all worked out. So
That's great now with the trackers that you can see along the way. So you must have been pretty excited as you saw his numbers go, started coming.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I was there, all the QT2 people are there, like, just tracking everything and being at the right spot to see everybody. And yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Amazing day. All right. So last question for you. What piece of advice would you give to someone who's trying to qualify for Kona?
Again, get a coach that knows long course and knows like the intricacies of that, because it's a lot of times it'll be, give me somebody who's finishing in the 20s, right? And again, that's where I was before I started with QT2. Give me somebody who's kind of gotten to that plateau in your age group, and usually they're missing a couple components, and maybe they'll find them, maybe they won't. But if you go to somebody who knows how to do it, then usually you'll see a big jump, and then it's just kind of fine tuning from there. And everybody's always thinking more, harder, and then they run themselves out. So some of the big changes are getting somebody who will tell you to slow it down, because people almost never tell themselves to slow it down. And get the nutrition right and get your race execution right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, both of you. This is really, really fun. Looking forward to tracking you in Kona, Dave. Congratulations. Congratulations, Dave, for having an athlete make it there.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely happy to be there.
All right. Bye.